Namaskar.
Namaskar. Welcome to this English edition of P Gurus in English, and we are going to talk a lot of things today. The first and the important thing is the talks have begun. Yes, the talks between America and Iran have begun, and there are two important developments with the talks. 29 attacks is one, and there's a warning from Donald John Trump. If the talks do not work out, what is the plan? After that, we are going to talk about what have the Saudis talked. They have done usually a tailspin. There's a revelation what America was trying to get a deal with Israel, and Israelis have spilled the beans. And in the meanwhile, there are some sensational developments happening in Japan. There are things happening in the American border where Trump has ordered troops to go and take control of the southern side of the border and it's literally military takeover of the border. And after that, there are things which are happening in Japan. There are things which are happening in Taiwan, and much more to do. Will be back in 5 seconds.
Namaskar. Talks have begun in, I think, Muscat, Oman, and this is again that play. Iran says we are not in talks, but we are indirectly talking. What they are putting in different rooms, and one guy is going back and forth. Is that what is happening? Sumit will give us all the details. Over to you, Sumit.
Namaskar, sir, and namaskar, welcome to all our viewers. And in the name of Bhagwan Sri Ganesha, let's do the Sri Ganeshas of today's talk. Well, it's a very interesting turn of events because there are 3, 4, 5 developments that are happening today. And with China and tariffs and a lot of things happening in the geopolitics, we have to, of course, talk about China and the tariffs and what does it mean. The first important thing we want to start with the talks are beginning. Look, Steve Witkoff reached there, and 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗿, the Iranian foreign minister, has reached Oman. The talks have started. Iran has confirmed. Americans have confirmed. As we are talking to you right now, the talks are beginning. 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗿 says that the talks will be indirect. Americans say the talks are going to be direct. Now, Americans are playing it smart because only Steve Witkoff is there. So he is a person who is not a kind of a politician or a diplomat. He's a good friend of Trump, and he happens to be a real estate developer, a good shrewd businessman, very good for negotiations. And 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗿 is the foreign minister of Iran, and he's the same man who has been very much into this nuclear mess from very beginning. He's the man who was instrumental in getting the deal signed out with Obama, and he's the one who has literally holded Obama's hand to sign the deal. So he has a lot of credit, and he understands this nuclear thing of Iran the best on the table. But the advantage of Witkoff is he's a man with clean mind. He doesn't understand history. He'll say what is best. Typical businessman. In the given situation, what works for me? And accordingly, Trump will kind of lay down the cards later on. It will be the same pattern that let Steve Witkoff go. Let him see if the things can be reached. Then possibly you will have Marco Rubio or Secretary of Defense or NSA. All these people can be roped in at a different point of time. But let's see what Steve Witkoff has to say. Well, the things are happening there, and this direct, indirect. Oh, I'm not interested. You're not interested. Let's talk. Let's not talk. Well, all this was happening. 2 important developments happened. Just before the talks, Trump wanted to show his power. How does Trump show his power to Iran? The best way is, if I want to threaten you, if I want to intimidate you, I go and knock down your neighbor. That is what the Americans have done. Trump had offered a deal to Houthis. Say, look, stop attacking the ships in the Red Sea. I can be merciful to you. I think this was just an olive branch which Trump, on purpose gave to Houthis, knowing that Houthis will reject it. And as expected, Houthis said, we are not interested. They let down the offer. Now, Trump waits and keeps quiet. Okay, you're let down the offer, no problem. Just 2 hours before the scheduled meeting, in 2 hours, 29 American sorties, and they dismantle anything and everything which was standing for Houthis. Monumental damage, big damage to Houthi infrastructure. You can imagine when the American jets, rain fire on you. In 2 hours, 29 strikes. 29 strikes in 2 hours. And what do the Israelis do? They pick up all the footage and release it to the whole world. So Americans did the bombing, Israelis were picturing it, and Israel just released the picture. What happened after that? The Houthis are rattled. They don't know what to do. The Houthis fire a couple of drones, and one of them falls in Jordan. None of them reaches Israel. So even the Houthi drones are running low of power, low on the battery. I think the Chinese didn't give a proper battery, so they fall midway. They never reach the destination. They fall midway. Well, Chinese technology works like that. Now, with all these things happening, so now with this message starting, Trump wanted to send a chilling message to Iran. We can really hit you and hit you hard. Now, when this is happening, and with it, Trump issues a statement. So this was happening in the back end, what I told you. And in the meanwhile, Trump issues a statement. Look, if the outcome of the negotiations is not good, you are going to regret it. It's going to be a very much bad days for Iran ahead. So in a way, Trump is saying, if you don't fall in line, or you don't fall in line, Iran is going to pay heavily for failing of this negotiation. Well, 𝗣𝗍𝗍 was saying a couple of days, 2 days back when we talked to you last week, and the day before yesterday, he said, look, we don't trust Americans, but we are still going for the negotiations. We want to see how much are Americans really interested in the negotiation. That's why I'm going. Otherwise, I am not interested. And when the reporter asks Karachi, what happens, sir, if the negotiations do not work out? What is the alternative? He says, then Americans would be unnecessarily risking the lives of their soldiers in the region. So he's threatening of attacking American bases and American soldiers. So Trump did not say anything. I was waiting what the Americans say. They were keeping quiet. So just 2 hours before the meeting, they go and beat the shit out of Houthis. 29 strikes in 2 hours, and Trump sends a message. If you don't fall in line, the things are going to be bad. What happened in the backdrop? Let me recollect for you. 2 𝗏 batteries are in Israel, and more Patriot batteries have landed there. And a big plane, M5, with the biggest cargo plane in the world, landed in Israel with all the ammunitions. So Israel is completely packed and ready with all the ammo it required. This is happening. So if the the military talks fail, nuclear talks fail, then the war is inevitable. So that is what is happening. Now, meanwhile, I have to talk about China and others. So what is Iran is holding its cards close to its chest. Iran's proxies are decimated. Iran's proxies are not a problem. Iran does not have a nuclear bomb, and Trump is reinstating again and again, will never allow you have one. But there are people, the agencies, which claim they are very, very near to it. And if they can move those centrifuges to an underground facility, one of those in those hills, then the bomb making or the enrichment of uranium can happen at a much bigger, faster place. But the problem with the Iranis is moving these big centrifuges under maybe 50 feet or 100 meters or whatever meters below the soil, and having such a big facility is not so easy. And Iran knows that a war with America will be a decisive blow to their economy, because Iran's economy is now under very, very deep stress. And all the investments they have done in the proxies here, Hezbollah and all, they all failed. So Iran doesn't have too many options. Iran does not want to fight the war, but Iran will posture, because posturing is the only option when it comes to China or when it comes to Iran. Posturing is the only practical option available with them. I am using the word practical option available with them, because theoretically there are no other options. So this is happening on the war. Let's see what is the outcome, how does it turn, and what will be the American next. So meanwhile, Israel is pounding Lebanon, Israel is pounding Palestine. Today, I think just before the show, there was a crossing which was linking Khan Yunis with Rafah. That has been taken over by IDF. So there's no link for the first time between Khan Yunis and Rafah. No link. It's cut. IDF is in the middle. So it's one important point vis-a-vis Gaza ground fight for IDF, which IDF must be complimented, because this was not an easy battle to win. But this is going and doing that, what do we say in Hindi, 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗏 𝗁𝗏. You have to literally fight in those LAs and those narrow lanes and house-to-house fight. This is that kind of a fight. So IDF has taken over that. That's an important update here. Now from there, let's move to China. So this is about the Iran, this is about the America, this is about Israel. I have one more story of Israel. I'll come to that at a later stage. But let's move to now China. Now, China is only having 145% tariff, just 145% tariff, minuscule, thoda sa. And the Chinese have put 125% tariff on Americans. I was doing a research. What are the American products which get hit? The products which are going to get hit are beef, pork, and soybeans. They're the 3 main products which will get hit. You see, China is not a food-dependent country. China still needs to import food. It is not food sufficient. It imports food from a lot of countries in the world. So putting all those duties on American products is only going to make things worse for you. Second thing is what China exports to America is those small things, those toys, small, cheap, small things. But what China gets from America is semiconductors, aircraft parts, those high, high value items and high technology items. Now, if China wants to put 125% tariff on that, no problem. Americans can live without a Chinese toy, but can you live without the parts which make engine? No, can you live without semiconductors? That's the question China has to answer. But there's a crazy man at the helm of affairs. He thinks whatever he does is everything, because China has really no option. Because all the facade which you created since the time you joined WTO, it has been shattered. It was at the time of, I think, Bill Clinton, they joined WTO. And in 2017, I think 2017 Obama came, and after Obama, and they really rocketed to the next level. In 80s, China was a poor country. From 80s to this time, China has really skyrocketed. You have to thank Mr. Barack Hussein Obama for giving China what they have got right now. And instantly, China became the biggest problem for American law and order and American security. Now, with this, what will happen to this trade war? That will be your question. What is Trump thinking and what is happening inside China? Though we're going to talk about it tomorrow in detail, but I'm going to touch briefly about it so that you have an idea what is happening. Look, 20% they did, 34%, then another 50%, another 20%. Now you and me have lost track of the numbers, but where do the numbers stand? 140 and 145 and 120. That is about 125. That's where the numbers are. Now, is this tariff war going to de-escalate? No, it's going to escalate. Now, instantly, China says today, if America increases the tariff, I am not going to respond to it. You know why? Because this mixing and matching, this tit for tat with America is not helping America. It's not helping China. You know why? What is Trump trying to do? I'll tell you what Trump is trying to do. This is an iPhone, typical iPhone, right? I am manufacturing this in China for, let's say, $50, and I'm selling in America for $100. This is the business model broadly speaking. Now, if I have 20% tariff, my landing cost will become 60. But if I have 145% tariff, my landing cost in America will become $125 broadly. Don't crucify me for cents and here. $125 broadly. Now, if the tariffs go on increasing, this phone will become $200. I'm Apple. I'll think, why the hell? Why the hell am I manufacturing in China? I have two options. Either I go and manufacture in America. I can still manufacture. This is $110, $120 in America and sell with peace of mind. Or go to a country like India, maybe manufacture it for $60 in place of 50, and the landed will be 65, 70. So these are the two options. So in a way, what is the Trump's mega plan? Trump's mega plan is as follows. Look, the money which China made basically is from exports. That's where they make real money. Look, the another thing is in this 2020, let me take you back to the WTO days. When China entered WTO, they changed and tweaked a lot of their policies and practices just to enter. But since the time they entered, they had all the plans to manipulate the world trade, world economy, and manipulate it to the way it is right now, and it serves their interests. Subsidizing, killing the markets, entering through ABC channels, stealing data, everything on the cards. This was all China was doing. Now, what happened with that? Now, China today says, I want to protect the world trade order. I want to protect the multilateralism of the world. I want to protect this world economy and the trade as it is. Because the flavor of the trade, what you're seeing right now, is already manipulated and it's already fitting to customize for Chinese needs. It is not what it was supposed to be, but the world kept close eyes and did ignore China for a long time. So what China has really wondered from 2001 to this time, how many? 25 years, I put 25 years of money. I put trillions of dollars in this manipulation. If the world order changes, this 25 years and these trillions of dollars are gone. That's point number one. That is why China worried. Point number two. Look, 90% of my you see, what happened in 2020, the Chinese real estate failed. 21, 30% of the GDP is gone. What did China do? They put all the money in manufacturing. Now, you have seen a lot of these new factory towns have come up in China, though they are ghost towns. No factories there, but they thought they will move all gear, complete gear to manufacturing so that whatever they lost in the real estate, that can be countered. So that was the China's mega plan and they did it. And that's how China does. Start the infrastructure, then we'll do. More factories, more economy of scale, more subsidy, will kill a couple of more countries, will kill a couple of bloody more markets and capture the whole world. That is what the game plan was. Now, what happened is when Trump comes into the picture, he understands the situation carefully. He knows real estate is gone. He knows all the bets are on where? Or on manufacturing. They were on AI, you block them on AI. They were on semiconductors, you block them on semiconductors, right? They were on artificial intelligence, you did not let them have that. So and they were banking a lot on green energy, you did not let them have, because he came and said by 2028, what Biden has said, these many percent of vehicles have to move to the green energy. That's not required. There's no need to change your car. So those, I don't know how many million cars which are made in China, EVs are rotting there. And you know what happened with the lithium contamination. We discussed in one of our programs, I think 1 or 2 weeks back. So EVs are grounded. So what is the only bet left? The only bet left is manufacturing. 90% of your manufacturing is controlled by MSMEs. Even 20, 30, 50% tariff is good enough to kill it. Now, why did Trump pull it to 145? Because there is still 10% of the manufacturing which is controlled by the biggies. And that is where Apple outsources products. That is where a Dell will outsource its products. That's where a typical lot of American companies will outsource their manufacturing. Now, that manufacturing makes American interests in the long run vulnerable. So in order to cover that, what have they done? By imposing these tariffs, it is either for an Apple or a HP or a Dell or anybody or a Cisco, they have two options. Either move it to India, for example, which is the most viable option, or manufacture in America itself. So they have to contemplate between the two. But in the whole game, manufacturing in China is unviable, unpractical, unfeasible, impossible. That is the Trump's bigger game. So with these moves, you kill the SME sector, SME, micro SME, mini micro SMEs, and you kill the big ticket manufacturing also. So when China's all bets are hedged on this, and you kill them all, what is going to happen next? I'll tell you. I'll give an example. Now there's a company, example, let me take this airport. Now, this is a very simple airport, right? There's a company, there are 10 manufacturers who are making this in China. 7 were selling to America, 3 were selling to Europe and rest of the world, 1 was selling within China. Now the American markets are closed. What is happening today? The shipyards and all are filled with containers. No ships are leaving. Because what happened? What will these 7 manufacturers do? They will either try to go to Europe. So Europe had 3 manufacturers, suddenly Europe will have 10. So what will the Chinese guys start doing? They will start cutting each other. Cutting, price wars, terms, all that. Or if, again, Europe is a small market, so they will start going into the African markets, which are not very big markets. So they will also start entering the domestic market. So there will be a competitive inhibition which will start within the China. And as a result of that competitive inhibition, if you have 10 manufacturers, 6 months down the line, you will be only left with 2. What will happen to 8? 8 will be bankrupt. What does the bankruptcy mean? First of all, there will be people which will lose jobs. Your stocks will be dead. Your inventory will be dead. Your machinery will be junk. Your factories will be useless. Today, nobody is hiring a factory in China. And secondly, all your lending which you have done from banks will become a bad debts, NPS. Right? When your lending from banks becomes NPS, now you don't know what to do. Now the banks are in trouble. Now, if you look at the Chinese economy, all the banks are either controlled by state or controlled by government. There are hardly any private banks. So these banks are going to take all the brunt. So in the long run, the Chinese government is going to take all the brunt of the failure of the industry. Then with this mass unemployment, the CCP will be finding it very, very difficult to hold on to the throne, hold on to the power. Because your ways were capitalistic of market growth, but your claim to power is based on communism. So it's like an acid cocktail. It's like a hydrochloric acid with alcohol. It might be a chemical compound, but it's not good for drinking. You can have alcohol with water. So that is what this dangerous cocktail was. Now, with these things happening, she will have only 2 options. She will have some options to do something drastic, that is to start a war or to walk its way out of this anyhow. Or you have the third option, get rid of Xi, get a new leader. He comes, apologizes, no, sorry, and try to, start it over again. Now, Trump has done a very classical arrangement for you. And let me take you back a little bit. Trump stopped the Venezuelan oil coming to China, put tariffs on that. Trump will disrupt Iran's oil supplies to China. It's a matter of time. When China doesn't have Venezuelan oil coming in, it doesn't have Iranian oil coming in, what will China need? China will need $1. Because you have to buy oil from Iran, so these are which are the legitimate sources. But at the same time, Trump is very smart. He didn't put any tariffs on the Russian oil. Because he knows he cannot antagonize Russia, and Russia's only business is oil. So anyway, the crude is around 60, 62, 63. Russian crude is around 50. Beyond that, it will be unviable for Russians to do it. But if the demand cuts from Iran, and the demand cuts from Venezuela, so the Saudi oil and the Russian oil will slightly see a upsurge, which is good for them. They get more money, which is good for America. They don't mind as long as it's around 67, and it's good for them because China will need more dollars to survive. So this, what China was silently trying to do is to buy a crude on rubles and does not need dollars. So their dependence on dollars is going to increase. And with these kind of things coming in, and Chinese army not able to do much, and she has to declare some kind of a war or something else, he is landing himself in a big soup. Now, what are the Xi's ambitions? What are his plans? And what is he going to do? I'll come to that. I think Sare has to make a point. So you have a point?
Yeah, Sumiji, we have tomorrow China Hindi, and we'll have a lot of discussions on that. But one other thing that is related to this, viewers, China doesn't want to come and sit for negotiations. What it wants to do is to show, look how powerful I am. So in order to prevent them from doing any mischief along the Mexico border, the army has invoked, Trump has invoked a law where they have something called as the Roosevelt line. It is 60 feet. 60 feet for 700 miles. And this part is actually like military zone. That means anybody who gets into that can be shot dead without any questions being asked. No judge can do any stoppage of this. So that rule has been invoked because they want to absolutely cut it off. See, problem is, if ones and twos are trickling in, you can catch them and release them back into Mexico. But if 5,000 come, let's just say, then how are you going to do it? So you have to really have a way to completely cut it off, and that's what we are trying to do. They're saying we are going to shoot. If you get this area, we are going to shoot. The remaining area is being managed by Texas. Texas is a Republican-run state. I hate to say this thing because the Democrat-run states are not helping. California especially. These guys should hang their heads in shame. So there is pincer attack. It's not just one place. China is being squeezed like they were never squeezed before. Itna pressure to kabhi nahi aaya, sir ji. Back to you.
Yeah. Now, with this happening, now the provision, I think, sir, it is some 1807 provision within the American Constitution which he's using, which gives him the rights. It's like people are saying it's kind of a martial law kind of a power where the president has his powers to invoke this, and he's trying to use that. So the borders are completely sealed. Now, what is Trump doing? Now, today, we were observing there were some plans of China vis-a-vis Taiwan. Some blockade was planned. There were some Chinese ships trying to, loiter around. Now, you will see what the hell is China doing in Taiwan. Bhai, ghar mein khana nahi hai. You don't have money to eat. What are you doing? That's what communists do. They create a theater outside their country. Now, what have Americans done? Americans have landed J-35Es. They are the most advanced fighter which... how do I confuse them? F-35Es. Sorry, not J-35.
I was wondering about that.
I confuse between F and J. Arey bhaiya. There's so many. I think they should have different names now. But because the problem with Chinese is they even copy the name, sir. Problem to ye na. They will even copy the name. Yeah. Now, this F-35Es, they have landed in Japan, the airbase which has. This airbase is 200 miles away from Taiwan. Now, this airbase had F-15E Eagles, the older ones. The Eagles can carry double the payload of, F-35s. But Eagles are not stealthy fighters. They are not as good as F-35s. Now, these F-35 deployment in Japan is a very, very clear indication to China vis-a-vis Taiwan. Do not try to meddle with Taiwan. This is a very, very clear indication. And Taiwan has not imposed any tariffs on America, and Taiwanese president says, let's talk. And even Taiwan is already what I talked to you, that Taiwan is interested in getting American troops camp in Taiwan, like it was from 55 to 79, that kind of arrangement they have been talking to America. And even manufacturing TSMC might move fully or partially to America. That's also on the table. So now with these deployments, what they can do, any threat posed by J-35s or J-20s of China, F-35Es are good enough to manage it. So there will be a formation where you will have these F-35Es followed by the Eagles. Then the upgraded version of the Eagles, which is supposed to come for that base, that will come in May 26. There's still 1 year to go. For that 1 year, though it was not seen as a threat, but there is some actionable intelligence aware. When the Americans immediately moved these F-35Es there because they fear Chinese J-20s and J-35s. They might, because the current plane Eagle is not a match to what China's firepower is there. And simply China can produce more aircrafts than Americans. It's not a quality, sometimes it's also the quantity is too big. So with this, that base is secured. Japan is very happy. Taiwan is very happy that the Americans are responding. But my question is, why has American all of a sudden decided to do that? Because there is some actionable intelligence. Look, China is already fuming on Panama. We talked about it last night, day before yesterday. They're fuming about Panama. All the work in last 25 years in Panama is down the drain. And Panama is literally singing like a canary. So after Panama, then there is Japan. In the meanwhile, this all thing was happening and the talks were going on. There are two more developments vis-a-vis Iran-America talks. We are trying to take two together because I'm trying to talk to you about China and Iran and try to find the linkages between the two, because they are the only two theater commands which are open right now. War theaters in a way, not theater commands, war theaters, if I want to be grammatically correct. Now, what is happening here? Now, all of a sudden, Saudis did a tailspin today. There was a meeting in I think Riyadh, and some foreign ministers of Islamic countries were there. And then the Saudi foreign minister issues a statement. He says, look, whatever is happening in Israel is not good. Whatever happening in Gaza is not good. We are in support of a Palestinian state. And this has not been the stated position of Saudi. They have been trying to hint things around it, but they are now stating it. And we want maximum pressure on Israel. Now, what is maximum pressure? Maximum pressure is the slang or the word which Trump uses for Iran. Maximum pressure on Iran. Now, the Saudi foreign minister is turning the tables. He's saying, I want maximum pressure on Israel. Why? Because Israel is doing the human blockade on Gaza. People are suffering. Children are suffering. Everybody is suffering. And because of that, and there's a lot of human suffering there, and politically there is no solution to that. People cannot leave Gaza. If they want to leave, they will leave on their own will. They will not leave like this. Because of that, and because of these things, and because of these things, we want full pressure on Israel. Now, this is seen as just before the talk. This was seen as a kind of an anti-climax to this strategy. You have fundamentally changed your two things. You are talking of putting pressure on Israel. You are talking of a Palestinian state, which was not your stated policy earlier. Now, MBS is very smart. He doesn't say it himself. He makes his foreign minister to say, because push comes to shove, he can come off, override that. So there is a change in the Saudi position vis-a-vis this. And remember, there was also a statement when these all people got together and informally told America, look, please, sir, do not use our soil to attack Iran because we are fearing retaliation. But when Iran says, I'll go and attack American base and soldiers in the Middle East, which is your soil, nobody said Iran, how dare can you talk about it? When Americans want to attack Iran, there's a problem. But Iran wants to attack and kill American soldiers on their land, then there is no problem. Perfectly no problem. So again, this is a bit of a, tailspin by Saudis. Now you will understand why America is on its own bombing Houthis, why America on its own wants to take Iran, why America does not want to get an alliance together and, balance those whims and fancies and try to do something. That is why America does. Even if you look at today, 2 hours, 29 strikes, Houthis are decimated. They won't be over, but they're substantially hurt. This is what the kind of, you see, these are talking. And in the meanwhile, there's one more story which has emerged from Israel. Israel Times claims, he says that there was an American delegation or a group who wanted to talk with Hamas directly. It happened in the last week of February and first week of March. They went to Middle East, they had the talks and all. So things were being talked about that, okay, Israel was not involved here. So if we will, we have you release the bodies of 4 American Israeli soldiers and 2 Israeli Americans. In the place of that, Hamas asked to give us 500 hostages, prisoners. 100 of them have to be on a life sentence. So then they said 250, then they said 150, and all was happening. In the meanwhile, Israelis got a wind of it. They called them and said, what the hell are you doing? How are you negotiating on behalf of us? So when this happened, suddenly the thing started changing. When Hamas came to know Israel knows about it, so what did Israel do? Israel started pounding Gaza more and more, getting more and more Gaza. And that is the time when it is believed that Hamas's new leader or the prime minister or the president which they nominated, they went to a hospital block and killed him. So suddenly Hamas realized that even negotiating on the back with Americans is much expensive affair, because we are trying to get few people out of the jail. In the meanwhile, Israel has eliminated more than 500 people. In those 2 days, Israel eliminated more than 500 people. And even there was an incident wherein some paramedics unfortunately accidentally got killed, which Israel says it's an accident, but the Arabs say no, it was done by intention. I don't know who is right, but this is what was also happening. So ultimately, the negotiation did not happen. Then Hamas called it off, say, no, we are not interested in talking to Americans. Because you know why, sir? Because Hamas got exposed. Hamas said, will not talk. Hamas said, will not talk to American this, American that. And then when they were talking to them and even trading the dead bodies, when in the whole Islamic world, you are trying to get everybody together to fight and do the jihad against America, then you are talking directly to Americans. So what did they say? No, we don't want to talk to you. The deal was called off because Israel scuttled the deal. In a way, Israel scuttled the deal and moves the coins too fast. So the Americans realized that without Israel, the deal cannot happen. So this is one of the important developments which has been just revealed. No, a lot of these things keep on happening behind the curtains, which we don't know. But there's a right time when things start coming out of the closet. So you had a point, G.
Yes, Sumit-ji. I had an interesting observation from a viewer, and I just wanted to clarify this. Aditya says, how come two live shows, one is Speak Gurus and another one is on Jaipur Dialogue? Well, Aditya, this is the real live show because I can do this, they cannot. Continue, please.
Yeah, we are live here and that is a recorded show. Okay, so this is what is happening here. Now with all these things happening, now there's one more development which is there to report is now Americans tried to cut a deal, but it could not happen. So they moved to the other side, and this is how the things are moving. Now, Japan, the Americans are already there. We have discussed the Israel. We have discussed these 29 strikes. So these now we have to come back to what China is thinking. What is the position of China right now, and what is going to happen if the deal fails? There are two scenarios which we have to come to it, because 29 strikes is over. Japan, we have told you, Taiwan is over. Iran, what is happening? Americans' border is over. So these we have
discussed. Done all the stuff that we set out to do. If you want to embellish if you want to add on one or two things, please feel free. Go ahead. 5 minutes.
Yeah, basically, whatever we have put, we have to make sure we have covered all those things and you understand the links. Now, what are the China's options? Now, the options for China are, they said we are not going to negotiate any further. If Americans increase the tariff, let them increase the tariff. We don't care. Let them increase the tariff. They can increase the tariff. हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. We are aloof. It doesn't matter to us. Let them increase the tariff. We don't give a damn to what the Americans are doing. Now, the question right now is, if you look at the Chinese economy, now with all those things which are going to go back for them, which are going to go bad for them, now there's an estimate. If things go like this, the cumulative cost over the years to Chinese economy is going to be $17 trillion. Some analysts are seeing this as a $17 trillion hit to the Chinese economy. Now, for the sake of God, which economy can take $17 trillion hit? Now, a lot of you will have one question in your mind, which I know. You say, look, Chinese, Sumit-ji, you told us Chinese can devaluate their yuan, which is always option open. I know this is a question which is going to come. So let me answer this in advance. Look, Chinese yuan when we met last time and when we met this time, it has already fallen by around 15%. 12-15% has fallen. I think 10-15 year low. Now, Chinese always have an option of devaluating devaluating its yuan further, maybe another 15%. But now you have a tariff of 145%. So how much are you going to devalue the yuan? You cannot devalue yuan by 150%. It will fail. At that point, it will fail. Because beyond even at 30%, look, even at 30%, the quantum of currency which you are printed, will fail your yuan. You cannot even go down to 30%. And what are the American options? Thanks for the to say Happy Hanuman Jayanti. Happy Hanuman Jayanti, all people. So now I'll tell you what. Now, if you can't go to that level, what are the Americans going to do? The Americans have one option. Remember what happened with Japan. When America had a close tie with Japan, I think it was Reagan. Who was there? I forget the president. There was an American president. What happened? It was Reagan, I believe. So when the Japanese things started flooding the American markets, and it was a similar scenario wherein Japan did not have intentions to kill the American markets, but they were all Japanese things. What did Americans do? Remember that time? Americans devalued the dollar by 51%, if I'm not wrong. 51%. So even after this fiasco, now you cannot go beyond 20%, right? That is Chinese yuan, because you're printed already too much of yuan. Now for Americans, you can still go to 10, 20, 30%. Even if you go to 30, rock bottom, Chinese, I can devalue my dollar by 20, 30%. I'm not saying Americans should do that or this is the best option, but I'm telling you they had devalued their currency 51% in the past. There's a precedence for that within the America. So if I look at this precedence, if I devalue my dollar by another 20, 30%, that's end of the yuan. Yuan is gone. Chinese economy is gone. That is why the current impact is estimated to be about $17 trillion. And if China continues to hold its ground, all the important supplies for its industry, whatever is left, will stop coming from America. And what are the Germans saying? I was just tracking the German media. The German media is saying we have to kiss goodbye from getting components from China now. Germany is feeling China can no longer supply them the raw materials, because a lot of ingredients which China supplies as raw materials are coming from where? Are coming from United States of America again. Now what have you done? You have put 125% duty on them. So if I'm making, let's say this, and a lot of ingredients are coming from America, I put 125% duty on this. So my cost will be up by 60, 70%. Then how am I going to go to the Germans? Because Germans, if there's an arbitrage of 70, 80%, it's not going to help. So there's this important aspect which you have to also understand. Now, there's another thing I have to tell you. This is something big, as I keep best for the last. She said there's a state called Missouri, I think in the United States, right? Missouri.
Yes,
yes. What is the news coming out from Missouri? Fantastic news, guys. Mind-boggling news. I must tell you, I'm so happy. What happened? What happened in Missouri? You know, this Chinese let the virus go loose, and Americans lost a lot of lives. So there are people who went to the court. He said, look, Chinese did this to us, we lost lives and all. Court said, look, sorry, this is an international law. This is an international thing. This is beyond our scope. It's beyond my pay grade. I cannot intervene in this. So they went back. Kate got quashed. Now a set of people went back. He says, sir, I am from the healthcare department of Missouri. Sir, we had to buy $130 million of masks and PPE kits, which was thrusted on us unnecessarily, right? And during this pandemic, because of this and us, because China did not inform us and all, we are not prepared. We lost $8 billion of revenue, productive revenue from taxes, revenues, what people would have made. So this is our claim. Now the court suddenly says, okay, I take this, because it pertains to the state of Missouri, that this is where the problem is. Now what has court ordered? Court has ordered in a landmark judgment in United States of America, 46,300 acres of Chinese land in the state owned by Chinese government and Chinese nationals will be confiscated by the state government. Court has given the ruling, you can confiscate the land and recover the money. And the best part of it is, within 24 hours of this, though they have a legal recourse, they can still go to higher courts, but within 24 hours of this judgment, other 12 states, there are around 12 states where similar cases have been put on Chinese government. So for the first time, we are seeing that the American government is talking of, or the American courts are talking of, seizing Chinese land owned by Chinese nationals and China government. And even there's a legislation which will be brought, what we talked on Endgame, that near the American air bases, they are trying to buy a lot of farmland. Basically, just say we want to do farming there, we want to do pig farming, but the idea is to spy on the American base or whatever. Even that land will not be allowed. Whatever land is there, that can be confiscated and handed over back to the respective government. So this is for the first time, 46,900 or 800 acres of Chinese-owned land will be confiscated in America. So if you see what Sree sir was rightly telling you, that means squeeze from everywhere. Har taraf se daba rahe.
One more squeeze. So what has happened is, this is just 1 hour old. Trump has exempted phones, computers, and chips from new tariffs, including from China. That is my understanding of reading article. I'll give you the link. This is now becoming viral on various platforms. But essentially what it is just, let me just zoom it a little bit. Is it easier to read now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the guidance also includes exclusions for other electronic devices and components, including semiconductors, solar cells, flat panel TV displays, flash drives, memory cards, and solid-state drives used for storing data. So basically, this is a bit of a climb down, I would say, for the United States also, that they are saying if these are the products, this we are going to not charge the high duty. It's an interesting play because he's on the one hand, he is trying to give them a lot of pressure. On the other hand, he has let off this wall because this might be about 40% of China's
30%.
exports. You have to look
Less
at the numbers. You don't know the
less than
exact thing.
Less than
Yeah,
30%.
big number. It's a big number, significant number. Let me put it that way. So this is a new thing. We'll analyze that a little bit later. I just wanted to give you, this is breaking news. So back to you. Let's wrap up and go for questions, Sumit.
I have one. Somebody sent me a meme for Pakistanis. I'm going to forward. You see if we can show it or not. I'll send you, sir. You see if we can show it. I mean, this talks a lot about Pakistanis, our good neighbor Pakistanis.
Go ahead.
I think if you can show it or not, you have to take a call. So, this is what is happening. So, this is new thing. So, Americans are really squeezing them really, really hard because what is going to happen if the pressure continues? Look, it's a star architecture of the Communist Party. Communist Party will collapse like this into center. When anything collapses into the center, the weight of the structure will kill it. If you go outside, there'll be a part of the structure which will impact. But if you go inside, because in a star architecture, you will collapse like this. In a typical architecture, you will collapse like, because here everything is coming to the Politburo and those 11, 18 people. So if Chinese Communist Party collapses like this, that will be the end of communism from the China. A lot of people in China really want this communism to end because they think that they have brought this country to this disaster. Even there's a talk within the Chinese military, either go and fight Americans or just maafi mango. If you can't fight, if you can't take the Americans, then why are you doing this pangabazi? Why are you every day needling and fingering? There's no point. Go, if you have the power, go and fight them out and see who's the best. But if you don't have that power, if you don't want to confront, if you don't want to do, then say, okay, sir, let's live and let live. So for the first time, this whole Chinese Communist Party in China is coming into this really, really deep freeze, and they don't know what happened to them. And then their knee-jerk reactions, and honestly, the only two countries who have reacted like this, China and Canada, buddies. Minus that, nobody else is talking like that. And according to the Secretary of Commerce, I think 80 countries are already talking to America for the tariffs. So what did Trump do? Trump fired the salvo and pulled it back. So in the meanwhile, all the flock get together, said, let's talk. And there was one country, only one country which was singled out, that is People's Republic of China. And in the whole of Middle East, there's only one country which is singled out is Iran. So as I've been telling you, Trump has focused on two countries, China and Iran only. These are the only two countries which are in his radar because he knows what is the nuisance value they bring to the table. So let's see how it goes. And even this 10% tariff which Trump was talking of everybody, today there was a news that there can be exceptions to that also. It's not necessarily that every country has to pay this 10% based tariff. So you can have even exceptions to that. So this even mandatory, so-called mandatory 10% tariff might not be applicable to all countries. There might be even exceptions to that. That is what the new policy is. So let's see. India is also trying to close its FTA. A lot of 80 people are negotiating. And let me tell you, friends, you may argue in this world there are 200 plus countries. Good enough, agreed. But there are not more than 80 to 90 countries who have that stature of doing international trade and contributing to the international economy. So unfortunately, some countries are small, some countries are very small. So, and if you're 80 on the table, right, including European Union, India, and others, I think you've already got 80-90% of the world. Some 10% of the world might have not come up to you. It's not because they don't value, because they are not as important in the bigger scheme of things. Like Pakistan has 5.5 billion exports to America. Do you think America has the time to talk to Pakistan? What is Pakistan's position? 5th largest country in the world. But what is the contribution to the trade? $5.5 billion. Do you think Trump has nothing to do? Yeah, if it is Xi Jinping, he will have nothing to do. He will give a lot of importance to Pakistanis. But in America, why should they bother about Pakistanis? But there was an incident. I got a meme about Pakistanis. I don't know, can we show that or not? Let's send it to Xi Jinping.
That's a little risque.
Yeah, I found it too controversial. It's a hell of a thing. I wish we could show you, but not a problem. There's always the next time. So this is what is happening in the world. This is how the Trump tariffs are. But for Americans, the things have worked out. I fired a solo. I'm talking 90 countries. I've singled out China, and one thing is very important. Last thing I want to say. Chinese diplomacy and Chinese diplomats and Chinese wolf warrior diplomacy always gave the emperor with no clothes, this delusion, and this hyperbola that the whole world is emperor with China. You say this will march the whole world here. You say this will march the whole world here. That's what the emperor was told, Xi Jinping. You have seen that movie where this Sholay, where the Asrani says, "हम अंग्रेजों के ज़माने के jailer हैं. आधे दाएं जाओ, आधे बाएं जाओ, बाकी मेरे पीछे आओ." And when he turns 𝗟𝗡𝗙, there's nobody with him, because half went on the right, half went on the left. So there's nobody behind the jailer. That's exactly what happened with Xi. China is trying to get at least 10 or 20 countries rally behind them, even though chota-mota countries rally behind them. But the agony is, the reality of the world is Emperor Xi. There is not even one country behind you, though you are entrapped 50 countries. You have spent billions of dollars of China entrapping countries, buying leaders, corrupting leaders, buying favors. You have done you spent money like water. But still, the proof of the diplomacy is that with your wolf warrior diplomacy and with this hysteria on your mind, you don't have even one country backing you up. By the way, they approached India. Modi ji ne kaha, chal, nikal. So Modi said, chal, nikalo patli gali se. So Modi ji did not give them any face. Neither the FDI norms or anything are kind of relaxed. And all the people who had apprehensions about what happened to BYD. We have discussed, BYD is not going to expand operations in India. Piyush Goyal ji has said the sovereignty of the nation is more important than the trade and commerce. So I think that the message about BYD is very, very clear. So this is what is happening. The reality check for Chinese diplomacy is, you could not even find one country to rally behind you. That is the reality of the world. So all your deeds of this virus cultivation and debt trapping and taking the people's land grabs and all the all the kukarms, what we say in Hindi, all the misdeeds, what we say in English, what you have done, have come to haunt you back. Even after spending $1 trillion or maybe more, you can't goddamn find one country to support you. This is the reality of your diplomacy. This is what your 𝗥𝗘 is. This is what your stature in the international politics is. So, Emperor Xi, wake up, smell coffee, else days are not far. You will have to get into a plane and land in Moscow, and will be the state guest of President Putin till the end of your life. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Sumit. Let's take some questions now, please. Krishna Kishore wants to know, when countries worldwide are increasing their land occupancy, what Bharat is doing for Indians?
What we are doing, we are taking lands in Africa, we are taking lands everywhere on lease, wherein we are cultivating a lot of our crops and all. And there are a lot of farmers from Punjab, from Andhra, from Tamil Nadu and all, they have gone there and they have taken these big chunks of land, wherein the cultivation and all is happening. A lot of our lentils today grow in Africa on our lease land. But there is nothing we are doing to physically grow the land. We are not capturing few more countries to grow our land. India doesn't do that. But for our needs, we are kind of leasing out the land. That's what I can tell you.
Next one, please. Kalyan Ram Ganti wants to know, when Trump Netanyahu starts depopulating Gaza to build new Gaza, what are the chances of Indian contractors getting big contracts? Can Indians settle over there?
Why not? Israelis love Indians, Americans love Indians, and Indians are the most productive population you can ever get. But of course, when it's Israel, there will be some religious sensitivities which will be there. I will be very candid with you. So minus that, overall Indians will be very welcome. And Trump always said that we'll own Gaza, and that's what he has been maintaining. And by the way,
yeah,
I have one small update. When Vance had been to Greenland, there was an American lady, Colonel, I forget the name. She was commanding the base. She had sent some mails which were against the thought process of Trump and about their ideas about Greenland and all. Now the lady has been sacked, and what is given as a vote of no confidence, which is in American military, that we don't trust you, and a new colonel has replaced her there. So this is again very important message from Trump. No nonsense, no tolerance for dissent. That's a message to the military also.
Lolo wants to know, Shriji, Sumitji, 𝗓𝗏 𝗔𝗏, in case US starts a war with Iran, will she start a war with Taiwan? Already some news about increasing naval presence.
That's why I told you this
throttling is going on. Yeah.
F-35Es again. Chinese, why don't they even copy the names? F-35Es are being deployed there just to counter, because the F-15E Eagles which are there are not that updated. The updated version will come by May 26. That's why the Americans are seeing some sensitivity there. Why did I talk about this? Because if you're deploying these F-35Es, that means it's not out of thin air. Why it was not required 10 days back? Why now? So there's something which has changed on the ground. So in the world of intel, it's called actionable intelligence, wherein there's intelligence where you need to take action on that. So this is what has changed on the ground. Ji.
Next one, please. Thank you, YouTube Wala Maulana. YouTube Wala Maulana has a question. Thank you again. तहव्वुर का जब सजा होगी तब पूरा भारत देखेगा कि लेफ्टिस्ट लिबरल पार्टीज कैसे हमारी कौम की अपीसमेंट के लिए आरआर मचाती हैं. अगर फांसी हो गई तो सोनिया जी इमोशनल होकर रोने लगेगी. रात 12 बजे एससी खुल जाएगा.
Well, whatever you are saying, I won't be kind of surprised. This all is quite possible and very possible within the realms of logical imagination, not hyperbolic imagination. Logical imagination. हो सकता भाई, possible है.
One more from YouTube. बहुत धन्यवाद. सारे फॉरेन फंडेड न्यूज़पेपर्स एक्टिवेट हो जाएंगे और हमारे ह्यूमन राइट्स वाले जिनको सिर्फ हमारे कौम की ह्यूमन राइट्स की फिक्र है वो भी वो बिल से निकल आएंगे.
The answer is that because there are some people who are paying them specifically for the job. Well, when you have a ortho, let's say if you have a heart problem, you don't see a dentist, na. You have a dental problem, you only see a dentist. These people are exactly paid for this job only. For RR, what you call RR, for a particular purpose, community and a particular time. Their scope of work is very defined in their contracts. When do you have to do RR? They are not human rights activists. They are selective human rights activists who are only specialized in certain for communities and for certain communities and their purposes and political interests and certain political parties. So they are very specific. They are niche marketers. They are not generic marketers.
Next one, please. Kota Murthy wants to know, Sumitji, Houthis, though small in number, are causing damage to the ships. For example, US Harry Truman, will it become another US-Vietnam war, that too Saudi backed out of negotiations?
Sir, the news remains, Kota Murthy ji, US Truman has not been even hit by one missile. Houthis carried out for 2-3 days, were attacked Truman, right? But when I think I spoke on Bruce, when the American general or the officer of the commanding region was asked, Houthi missiles fell away 123 miles from the Truman. That is around 180 kilometers away. So they fired a missile at Truman, but the Truman is here. It fell 180 kilometers away from the Truman. So technically they attacked Truman, but practically did nothing. Because all the missiles are possibly made in China and with Chinese GPS and GPRS, 180 kilometers is not too far of a miss with Chinese technology.
Next one, please. Is yuan devalued? Maithili ji wants to know.
It is. I think it has already fallen by 15%, ma'am. If I look at my numbers, somewhere around 15%. Automatically, they have not devalued it. Gir gaya. It happened.
Next one, please. Jagpreet Batra wants to know, Sumitji, can we expect Galwan 2.0 Pagal Shi kuch to karega, and he knows America is expecting attack on Taiwan?
With China, you have to be prepared for anything. It can even happen tonight. It can even happen while we are talking. They can go to any extent. Don't believe Wengi when she says elephant and dragon can do the tango. No, it's all BS. Huh? Sorry to use this. This is all crap. They don't mean anything of that order. Look, China has eliminated 6 crore of its own people. How do you and me matter to them in the bigger scheme of things? Even in today, you see how many people die and disappear in China. Who knows? I mean, it's a crazy land.
Next one, Dr. DMK wants to know, is it true that digital RMB yuan clearing is connected to some Asian countries?
Yes, it is connected to
I've
some
got
Asian.
A program on this one. Yeah, go ahead.
And no, it's not only even 2%. I think there are only 2 countries which are in this digital yuan game. Not more than 2 countries even in the Asia. So it's not really the thing, though China tried a lot for it, but it didn't really get catch here.
Next one, please. Oh my God wants to know, if the dollar is devaluation, actually if dollar devalues, or if dollar dumping happens, would be an opportunity for India to buy it up on the bottom?
Look, you have to balance your risks. You have to see how much of money you're surplus. You have to go for that, because ultimately, if dollar devaluates itself, you have to really wait and watch. You should not jump the queue, but see how much of surplus money. It's not I sell my house and buy dollars. It should not be something like that.
Next one.
By the way, I'm saying this happened with the Japan. This is the option Americans have, as they've devaluated their currency by 51%. So I'm saying this is an option they can have. I'm not saying they're going to do it or they should do it. As they have done in the past, this option is open. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Yes.
Mr. Nash KK wants to know, is China confident that it can sustain business through rest of the world? Will it try to penetrate more into Europe and Africa?
This is a good question. That's why I gave that analogy, sir. If there are 10 manufacturers, because it's export-oriented economy and your biggest customer is America, 7 are selling to America, 6 are selling to America, 3 are selling to Europe, and 1 is selling domestically. What will happen when these 6 get out of the business? They will try to enter Europe, or they will try to enter the rest of the world, and they will try to even enter the domestic market. So there will be immense price competition. So out of 10, only 2 will survive, because the majority of the market is gone. So even if you undercut each other, give credit, eventually might survive for a few months, but eventually what is the end game? The end game is out of 10, only 3 will survive. 7 will perish. When the 7 will perish, what will be the impact of the banks, economy, currency reserves, defaults, NPS? It's a cascading effect which will start hitting the economy. And needless to say, the unemployment and contraction of demand.
Next one, please. Aditya Raghunathan wants to know whether India is ready for Chinese naval threat if they come from Sri Lanka.
I think we have strengthened our ties with Sri Lanka. There's an MOU in place with Sri Lanka. India has strengthened its Andaman Nicobar commands a lot, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Look, China cannot do too many things right at this point of time. Look, I've been always telling one point. After 28,000 sanctions on Russia, Russia could still sustain, right? But if you put these sanctions on China, swear to God, China will perish in 2 quarters. Because China is very, very, very heavily leveraged. You have to understand. There's a lot of debt on China. And they're somehow managing to keep this high. And everything is still controlled by Communist Party and their cronies. At the end of the day, anything that makes money is controlled by Communist Party. That is the reality of life. So we have to wait and watch how it goes. And we will be covering a lot about China tomorrow at morning at 10 o'clock, Endgame China. A lot of people used to ask us, what are you doing in this endgame? What happened in the endgame? Now, the beginning of the end has happened. So the end game
we have been proven right. Yeah. Look, we are going to stay the course. We are staying the course. We know what is going on. I mean, we were the first ones to tell you all is not well in China. Elmer Yuan. I mean, Sumitji, you and I have it okay. When Elmer used to be live on our channel, these guys used to try every trick in the book to try and disrupt the transmission. That is how bad these guys scum. Even, I have no sympathy for them.
Even
so I'm sorry, you wanted to say something. We can wrap it up after that.
Complete, sir. Then you complete, sir.
So we are done now. Thank you so much. And let's take the Ashirwad of Mahadevji. Namaskar.
And even I want to say that what I have seen broadly, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or put doubts. You know, I have seen pro-CCP content on social media will skyrocket. It will become the viral, the most hottest thing. And if you talk facts about China, you will have so much of friction. It's like, you know, your brakes completely pressed and you're trying to accelerate the car. You know, your brake paddle completely down and you're trying to put the foot on the accelerator. How will the car move? That's how we people move. That's the amount of friction we get. But if you start praising CCP, oh, you're viral. You're the best thing in the world. I mean, this is the reality of the life. And you see what the whistleblower has to talk about Zuckerberg today. I mean, if you look at that story, nothing is impossible. On that note, yes, we have to thank you for all your love, support, and patronage, which we always get, and your trust. Tomorrow morning, Endgame Channel, I'm going to meet you. On that note, Bharat Mata ki jai, Vande Mataram, and Har 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 Mahadev.
Mahadev. Bye.